Yeah, she's like, my mom was on
Yeah,
she's like, my name is.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the Board of Education. So I'll call the meeting to order and request a roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff?
Here.
Ms. Kalinowski? Here. Mr. Bush?
Here.
Vice President Darrow?
Here.
President McClelland?
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members have had the opportunity to review previous board minutes. I'd like a motion to approve the board minutes from November 19th.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Darrow and Mr. Bush, a roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. Now to tonight's agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
President McClelland, members of the Board of Education. First on the regular agenda, number 8 under personnel, section 8A, number 8, there's a correction for Christina Bartels. The effective date for her hire is December 17th, not December 11th. So that's on the regular agenda. And then in addition to that, this evening, Ms. Jenkins and I are presenting an addendum agenda for board resolution to approve procurement of roof replacement for the primary school and the administrative offices.
With those additions, may I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Kalinowski and Mr. Newmoff. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. Communications to the board, Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClelland. Begin this evening with recognition through Mr. Wheelenhouse of the state champion girls high school golf team. We have 6 outstanding ladies that have joined us this evening with their coach that Mr. Wheelenhouse is going to present for the Board of Education and the public to congratulate them on their Division I state championship. Richie.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us the time to celebrate our student athletes and our athletic program. We indeed had a great girls golf season as marked by this very large trophy sitting next to me. But I'm going to introduce the members of our team and then tell you a little bit about why many are considering their season the greatest girls golf season in the history of high school girls golf in the state of Ohio. First of all, the team members are Madison Spees, she's a sophomore, senior Morgan Panko, freshman Anna Ritter, freshman Kari Hollenbaugh, junior Gwynnie Lee, and freshman Ellie McNutt. The team's record for this year was 187 wins to 0 losses. During the course of the season, the team's average tournament score, it includes the top 4 players at each event, was 293.43, which works out to an average score of 74.6 per player. Their average margin of victory was 19.43 strokes per 18 holes played. On August 15th, 2018, they set an Ohio Capital Conference scoring record, shooting a total of 280, which is collectively 8 under par at Cooks Creek Golf Club, where the tournament was played that day. The team went on to win the OCC championship. During the postseason, New Albany Girls Golf claimed a sectional championship and district championship, qualifying the team for the program's first trip to the Ohio State University golf course for the state tournament. At Ohio State, the team posted a day 1 score of 300, which is the second lowest score in tournament history to stake claim to a 5-stroke lead. On day 2, in very tough conditions with winds that gusted to 30 miles per hour, the team raised the bar and posted a new tournament record score of 292, eclipsing the previous record for a one-day total of 297, or excuse me, eclipsing the previous record for a one-day total of 297. And in the process, setting a new 2-day tournament record of 592, which was 10 strokes better than the previous record mark. This effort earned the team a 26-stroke victory in the first state championship for New Albany Girls Golf. So please join me in congratulating our girls. At this time, I'd like to invite Coach Ritter to the podium to say a few words about his team.
Thank you, Richie, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. As Richie laid out, it was a really special season. This was a group of girls who came together from the very start and really supported one another, encouraged each other, put them through a lot of tests. We traveled to Canton, to Dayton, down to Cincinnati, even went to Louisville, Kentucky at one point. And as the record indicates, we played against a lot of different teams, some several times, but lots of challenges, different weather, everything you can imagine. And every time these girls rose to those challenges and answered the call and really represented New Albany and our school district extremely, extremely well. So I'm very proud of them, and it's been an honor to work with them. And a lot of great memories have come out of this season. Thank you.
Certificates and board.
Yeah, so we have certificates to give you ladies. Congratulations. Remind me to never ask any of you to play against me. That would be embarrassing. But we have a certificate we'd like to present you, and then a photo with the board. So if you would stand up here, please, it'd be great.
Bring the trophy.
And bring the trophy with you, yes.
Coach.
Coach as well. Yes.
I guess we're getting out.
Yes.
In front.
And then we went that way. So we're not standing there. Should we move? I usually move so that over here. Yeah. I usually get out of the way.
Thank you.
I'll give you guys
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, ladies, you're going to take a step forward, and the board's going to stand behind you. I'll actually come to the center. Height in the center, please.
Thanks.
Yes. We won't be. Yeah. I don't even have to.
So say, please don't. See ya.
Not only are they good golfers, they're smart. They're.
Instincts there.
Run. Run, ladies, run.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Jackie Lockery. I'm an English teacher at the high school, and I'm here for the Plain Local Education Association. Just to give you a few quick highlights from things for this December. Megan Johnson's first grade class, she came up with the idea for a winter accessory drive for the New Albany Food Pantry. And she presented the idea to her class, and the kids were like, oh my gosh, we have to get the other classrooms in the hallway to do this. And they did. And the class gathered, sorted, counted, and donated over 125 different accessory items for New Albany families. In fourth grade, Missy Mackey had her students present opinion essays to authentic audiences, such as fifth and sixth grade students, administrators, parents, principals. And they got feedback from the actual people who would have input these. One huge thesis for these particular opinion essays was, quote, fourth graders should be allowed to take their iPads home, unquote. So Mr. Ross, if you're listening, there you go. So that was just a really powerful experience for them to be able to talk to people who can make change. And then finally, my sweet Chloe Fulmer, she's in my humanities class this year. She worked with Mrs. Kegrice in 8th grade for art. And one of her works was chosen out of hundreds and hundreds of pieces for the Ohio Art Education Association's annual conference in Sandusky, Ohio. So that was a huge honor for her. So there we go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Moving on to discussion items. Any board liaison reports this evening? Then the second item then is our 2019 organizational meeting date, which we've all quickly checked our calendars. And I think unless I've missed something, Wednesday, January 9th at 6:30 p.m. is the date that we've decided upon. So do we need to vote on that or anything? We're just announcing it.
Announce it.
So we're publicly announcing tonight that our organizational meeting for the 2019 school year or 2019 calendar year is January the 9th at 6:30 p.m. here. And we will have it right here. Okay, Mr. Sawyer's next.
Thank you. Board of Education members, this evening, we're going to continue with our curriculum updates. The first semester is upon closure with winter recess and adjournment for winter break. Last month, I asked Dr. Hamilton to do the secondary update. This evening, we're going to do the elementary curriculum updates, beginning with Mr. Emery, the Director of Elementary Education. Mr. Emery.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide an update about our elementary initiatives for this school year. Our focus areas for the year are in the areas of math, reading, writing, and technology. For math, we continue to implement the Bridges in Mathematics program. Last school year, you as a board supported the adoption of Bridges so we could offer a consistent and aligned math curriculum for our K-5 students. Feedback from our elementary math teachers is they notice a significant difference in the second year of this program due to the students coming to them in August with a full year's experience with the vocabulary, procedures, and critical thinking skills that are part of the Bridges program, even at the youngest grades. As an example, when we assessed our first graders at the beginning of the year who had Bridges Math as kindergartners, we saw an increase from 37% to 58% for students placing in the top levels from the prior year. And we saw a decrease from 26% down to 11% for students falling in the at-risk category. We're administering MAP testing this month, and we're anxious to see if we have the same type of academic gains we achieved in the first year of using the Bridges program. We have 3 additional math implementations this year. First, under the leadership of Principal Michelle Unger, we are piloting the new Bridges preschool program at the Early Learning Center and 3 of our classes that serve 4- and 5-year-olds. Our second initiative is the use of Redbird math software for our 1st and 2nd grade students with the support of primary principal Teresa Smith. This software, developed at Stanford University, allows younger children to have an alternative to the ALEX math software used in 3rd grade and above. The board's adoption of the secondary level math curriculum College Prep Mathematics, or CPM, has impacted the upper elementary grades since the CPM program begins with 6th grade math. Since we offer accelerated math courses for many of our 5th grade students, the adoption has led to the 5th grade math teachers implementing 2 new programs in Bridges and CPM in 2 years, a difficult challenge which they have willingly tackled with the guidance and support of 5th grade math team leader Megan Labin. In addition, I would like to publicly thank our CPM secondary math instructional leader Aaron Jones, who you heard from last month, as well as our 6th grade math team leader, Kristen Zolwig, for their leadership with the CPM adoption to help our intermediate students have a consistent and coherent experience when they progress to New Albany Middle School. For reading, we have implemented a new online phonics and word study program for preschool to 5th graders called Lexia Core 5. Core 5 areas that are addressed in this software are phonological awareness, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. At the Early Learning Center and primary schools, Lexia is a wonderful supplement to the teacher-led explicit and systematic phonics program we currently use, Wilson Foundations. At the intermediate school, Lexia helps review foundational skills from foundations, as well as allow students to move at an individualized pace through advanced topics, such as Greek roots, analogies, and context clues. A significant focus for us this year at the elementary level is the adoption of a consistent writing program. With the leadership of Jessica Myas, our elementary principals explored our past state testing data, and we believe our students in New Albany can achieve at higher levels on the essay portions of the state examinations. Upon a closer curriculum review by the principals last school year, we realized we needed a guaranteed and viable curriculum for writing, which Superintendent Sawyers requires and expects for all content areas. For this school year, we are using the writing units of study in all primary and intermediate classrooms. This program, sorry about that, everyone. Thanks, Patrick. This program, developed by Columbia University faculty, is used in districts across the country that are seeking consistent instruction and high expectations for student writing. Similar to the Bridges in Math implementation last year, we are providing professional development to our teachers by our own instructional specialists, one for the primary school and one for the intermediate. I'm pleased to introduce Kristen Messenheimer, who supports the intermediate school, and Angelica Johnson, who supports the primary school. Kristen and Angelica will share some of the characteristics of the units of study and writing, as well as how we're currently using it in grades 1 to 6.
Thank you, Mr. Emery. All right, first we would like to thank Superintendent Sawyers for giving us the opportunity to share the exciting progress that we are making across the elementary grades with writing. As Mr. Emery shared, grades 1 through 6 are currently implementing the writing units of study developed at Columbia University. The program, in existence for over 20 years, emphasizes the genres of narrative, information, and opinion writing by providing clear and challenging expectations from grade to grade.
High standards and expectations are communicated daily in writing instruction across every grade level and every classroom. The common vocabulary used by teachers and the clearly stated progressions of the skills being taught allow us to not only look at where our students are now, but also to look at which skills they will need in order to grow as writers. As reflected on the slide, you can visit any classroom at both the primary and the intermediate buildings and see and hear the consistent terminology being used in daily writing instruction. Within each genre of writing, lessons will build upon prior grade level teaching, challenging our young writers with rigor and accountability as they move up through the grades.
Through a structure we call Writing Workshop, teachers are able to provide students with direct instruction that hits rigorous but grade-appropriate strategies, while still meeting individual student needs through small group instruction and one-on-one support.
While writing units of study is known for its rigor, it is also appropriate for all learners. Teachers who work with at-risk students are able to give specialized support in each child's area of need, using the same vocabulary and the same content used in the general education classrooms. As an example, this is Andy Norman, our primary intervention specialist, and he works closely with the classroom teachers for his special education students. He uses the writing units of study to ensure that his students are receiving the same message with appropriate support.
The writing units of study are designed to cultivate independence in students and ownership in their written work. One of my favorite questions to ask a student when visiting their class is, tell me, what are you working on as a writer today? And it is absolutely amazing hearing their responses because you can not only hear their clear understanding of the skills that that teacher just taught them, but in their response, you can also tell that they are truly becoming self-aware of what they need to work on to grow as a writer.
With the writing units, students are given the tools by their teachers to make their writing really great. These young writers are given daily practice until they are writing with these skills on their own. As they grow in independence, the students are given more choice and more authority over their own writing, making it mean something to them. As you look to the photo on the left of the slide, you will see a second grade student in Miss Weber's class, independently and on demand, writing a powerful moment in her life. Through the writing units, students are demonstrating argument, advocacy, and authenticity. In the primary grades, this means looking at and learning from books, chosen by the teachers that reinforce specific learning skills, which we call mentor texts. The use of mentor text is a strong focus in this program. It helps students learn to do what real writers do. On the left of the slide are examples of second grade students writing to inform and persuade their audiences on real issues like recycling and bullying. Students are telling the stories that make up their lives with beautiful, detailed language. They're providing evidence for their beliefs, and they are finding their voices. And they're doing all of this at a much younger age than we ever thought possible.
In intermediate grades, in our opinion and argumentative writing units of study, students are taught to stake a claim and provide factual evidence to back it up. From teen activism in 6th grade, to whether or not schools should serve chocolate milk in 5th grade, to 4th graders in Mrs. Mackey's class, as you heard earlier tonight, debating about being allowed to bring their school-issued iPads home with them, students are learning to argue and advocate through written discourse. The rigor of the writing units of study are stretching students beyond the grade level standards by encouraging them to not only gather evidence, but to acknowledge counterclaims and to angle their evidence in order to best fit their argument. In a recent essay, one 4th grade student in Mrs. Mejia's class argued that children are brave, inventors, and they are believers. Children can change the world. We want our students to continue to believe that they do have the ability to make a difference in the world, and writing is one of the most powerful ways for them to do so.
Thank you again so much for providing us the time to share the progress that we are seeing in writing.
Thank you, Kristen and Angelica. We're also using the writing units of study in kindergarten at the ELC, but as part of a pilot this year. So Principal Unger is using units of study in both of her half-day and full-day classes, 3 full-day sections and 4 half-day sections. So we're taking the feedback from our pilot teachers to see how we can best do a full implementation next year, knowing of the wide variance in time between our full-day and half-day programs. So before we move on to the next part of our presentation, we'd love to entertain any questions you might have about the writing program.
Sounds great to me. I love the argument part, so I'm excited about that. I don't have any questions. I think it's great. And I just having a 7th grader and 2 5th graders and a 1st grader, and I've seen just anecdotally the stuff coming home is much more than it was for my 7th grader. So I appreciate you recognizing the need to improve, putting the curriculum in place and executing on it. So thank you.
So, hey, I'm sorry, I was waiting. So obviously there's a lot of, writing is very subjective. So as a teacher, what are you doing? Are there any common rubrics that you guys are using to measure student growth and offer any feedback?
I think one of the strengths about this particular curriculum is that there's common rubrics at each grade level, but there's this overall learning progression that goes through the grades pre-K to 9th grade, so that any student in any grade can track where a student is in their current writing and look to see what that next level is. And that's common from pre-K to 9th grade. So then students too are getting used to seeing these same rubrics, and they will see, they have a student checklist that they can use to self-assess themselves, and they'll see that the language is gonna look very similar from year to year.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And along that lines, I think one of the expectations of Principal Smith at the primary school was that the rubrics that are used by the teachers match what go home to parents on their report cards. And I think another expectation that we like about the program is that Principal Smith expects, even at the youngest grades, that the writing that's being graded for the report cards is on demand. And so in the same way that all of our 3rd graders, not to mention all the students in 4th grade and above, when they take state exams, are given a prompt and you have to write on the spot, the students aren't given multiple drafts to refine and refine and refine when it comes time to actually do that final rubric. We expect them, even in 1st grade, to be given an on-demand prompt and what can you do independently within a window of time to respond to that prompt. So we really feel like the bar's really been raised significantly with our English learners. All right, so In addition to math, reading, writing, another initiative at the elementary involves the integration of technology into our instruction. So I'd like to invite Director of Technology Mike Voss and Intermediate Principal Katie Nowak to share with you about the progress of our one-to-one initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Emery. Good evening, President McClellan, Mr. Sawyers, Ms. Jenkins, members of the board. I feel the need to address the essays of the fourth graders. Just as a point of reference, some other topics that I heard when I listened to their essays were only going to school 3 days a week and no homework. So let's keep things in perspective as we go. As Mr. Emery mentioned, Mrs. Nowak and I are going to give you just a brief update on our one-to-one initiative. Start with the kind of what's been done, what's happening, what are some of the results, and then what are our next steps in the process. So just reviewing things that we've done since July 2018. And that's one thing to keep in perspective is this has all happened within the last 6 months. So a lot of things have happened in a very short time frame in terms of the changes that we've implemented. So first change we did was upgrade the Wi-Fi at the intermediate school. We needed to do this because the old system we didn't think was capable of handling the amount of traffic we were going to throw at it by putting iPads in every student's hand. So that happened over the summer. So that's in place, and it is handling traffic as we expected with very few issues in terms of the wireless network. Other things we did at the primary school in ELC, we took out all the smart boards and projectors, and we installed 70-inch high-definition TVs. So these are 85 total between the two buildings. Again, that happened over the summer before the teachers came back for the school year. We also purchased and deployed 155 Apple TVs. This is across all 3 elementary buildings. This allows the teachers to wirelessly connect to their TV, like Mr. Emery and I are doing tonight. That gives teachers the flexibility to walk around the room. They're not stuck at the front of the room. They can move around and be a little more engaged with the kids during their lessons. So again, that happened before school started this year. The big lift was deploying over 1,100 iPads to the 4th through 6th graders. So the first week of school, we just divided the building up into 4 quadrants, and we deployed them with the help of the teachers. And again, I think in terms of the amount of devices we deployed in that short time, there were very few problems and none that we couldn't solve in a short time. We also put 8 carts of new iPads in the primary school. So this is in addition to the Chromebooks they still have in the building. This gives them that flexibility to have more devices in the building, but also prep them for next year when they will have more iPads in their building. Similarly, at the ELC, we put 10 iPads in every classroom there. So that gives the teachers that flexibility of doing small group work in their classrooms using the iPads with their students. We also deployed new iPad Pros and new laptops to the elementary teachers. So the classroom teachers all got a new iPad Pro, and then the staff at all 3 buildings got new laptops, MacBook Airs we deployed to them. Those were deployed over the summer, so we set up about 25 to 30 different sessions where they could come in for a couple hours, learn how to use the device. That way they were comfortable with it when they went back for the rest of the summer, and they were ready when school started. We also implemented a new mobile device management system. So this allows us to remotely manage all of our devices. So it's much more efficient than what we used in the past. There's less physical touching on the devices. We can do a lot more things remotely. And with the volume that we have, it was necessary to do this type of improvement. And then also to help support the teachers, we purchased 30 days of professional development from Apple. So they've been on site several times. A professional from Apple will come here, spend a day or a couple days with teachers. They'll visit classrooms. They'll do workshops with them. And again, the idea is to support the teachers. One thing before I turn over to Mrs. Nowak to look at the results of all these changes, I just want to point out that, or mention that this was a lot of stuff that happened in the last 6 months. And it didn't go perfect, but it went probably as smoothly as it could have gone. Any problems that did come up, we were able to correct quickly. And that's to the credit of the department. Tim Lewis, Doug Jones, Brian Dawson, Joe Baker, Anthony Saunders, and Robin Davison did a lot of work planning in the preparation, a lot of work hands-on to troubleshoot as things came up. So I'm really proud of the team, and it went probably as smoothly as it could have gone for that first 6 months of something of this magnitude that we did. So I'll turn over to Mrs. Nowak now, and she can talk about some of the results that she's seeing in the classrooms and with the students.
Thank you. Might need your technical assistance. I'm still learning too. I'm going to talk a little bit about the results that we're seeing at the intermediate school with some pictures. Our staff and students have been busy collaborating, communicating, and creating with the use of the new iPads this school year. Staff have participated in professional development with Apple education specialists and support from our building technology coaches. In language arts, teachers have utilized the app Notability to annotate text, revise and edit writing, and provide feedback through video presentations and digital collaboration. There's a nice photo back there of Missy Mackey in 4th grade using the Notability app to really highlight and show some mentor text to students and provide that feedback. In math, students have utilized a program called Desmos for interactive graphing and CPM digital manipulatives such as algebra tiles to assist with problem solving and conceptual understanding. In the corner on the right-hand side, you see 3 6th grade students using those algebra tiles to problem solve. In social studies and science, teachers have utilized Keynote, Adobe Sparks, and iMovie for students to create multimedia presentations of their learning, as well as interactive learning opportunities such as the BioBlitz, where students utilize the iNaturalist app to snap pictures and video to identify over 700 organisms in Swickard Woods while verifying their thinking and assisting scientists with research. So you see some kids there out and about with their iPads identifying different plants and animal organisms. And the students really loved getting feedback from actual scientists in the field through that app. It's a great opportunity for them. Our staff have utilized Schoology and Apple Classroom to disseminate learning resources and materials, as well as provide feedback, communication, and collaboration opportunities for our students. As with any new pilot and implementation, we are refining our practices along the way, as well as providing that continued professional development. A Hanover research survey was conducted in October for students and staff in grades 4 through 8, and this demonstrated that teachers believe that using the technology in their classrooms allow them to provide more differentiated instruction, with 98% of teachers responding that way, more engaging instruction, 93%, and more interactive learning experience, 93% for our students. One area of need moving forward on the survey was that continued high-quality professional development. We have professional learning scheduled in January, February, and March with some release time, co-teaching opportunities, and one-on-one support available to continue to integrate our technology in meaningful ways in the classroom. Thank you.
So then what are the next steps? So we've taken care of the elementary buildings with still some room to grow in the primary and ELC buildings. So what are our immediate next steps? We're going to deploy or install new TVs, 70-inch TVs in the middle school. This is going to happen over winter break. So I'm working with Mrs. LeBeau to help the teachers prepare for that and help make a smooth transition when they come back from winter break. So that'll happen over the next couple weeks. We're also going to deploy new iPad Pros to the high school, middle school teachers. We thought it would be best to do it during the winter and spring. That way they would have all summer to learn more, to develop their lessons, and to continue with professional development. So that'll happen over the next few months. Then over the summer, we'll install the TVs in the high school buildings. So this is obviously our biggest building with the most challenges in terms of classrooms. So it's going to take us quite a while to do that. So we wanted to dedicate the summer for the high school, which is one of the other reasons why we want to do the middle school classrooms now. We're also going to put new iPad carts in the 3rd grade classroom. So we've completely one-to-one in grades 4 to 6. So now with this, we'll be 1-to-1 3 in 3rd grade also. And then we'll purchase new iPads for the 5th graders. They're using the iPads in 4th grade now, but those are in carts. Those will stay in the carts for the next round of 4th graders to use. The 5th graders will get a new iPad. Again, the reason we do it in 5th grade is because of the 4-year life cycle. They'll have it 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then get a new iPad as freshmen through high school. And then next year, we'll also expand upward to the high school. So 9th graders will get iPad Pros. So that'll happen at the beginning of the school year. Again, I'll work with Mr. Kramer and his team to decide how we deploy those, taking lessons we learned from the intermediate deployment and from other schools for the best practice and how we do that with 9th graders. And then we're also going to deploy iPads to 8th graders. So this wasn't part of the initial plan, but talking with teachers, administrators, and looking at how the middle school is set up. There's a lot of classes at the middle school that are mixed 7th and 8th grade. So we felt that having half of the kids in the class have an iPad, the other half not, it wouldn't be the best learning experience for them. It would be a challenge for the teachers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the money that we would spend on the 2nd grade iPads, which is planned for the next school year, for the following round, and we're going to purchase those early. We're going to let the 8th graders use those for a year. They'll get iPad Pros when they go to freshmen. We'll take the iPads we purchased this summer and then put those in 2nd grade classrooms the following summer. So we'll end up having to squeeze 5 years out of this round, but we believe with them being in carts in the 2nd grade classrooms, we should be able to get that 5th year of life out of those devices. And that'll just make it it'll just make it easier at the middle school for the teachers and the students to be consistent across the building. And then it'll help prep the 8th graders for that 9th grade year when they get the iPad Pros. So those are the next steps, and we continue to evaluate and adjust as we go on. And again, I think, knock on wood, I keep saying what could go wrong, but things have been fairly smooth so far, and we're pleased with the results. So with that, are there any questions, comments from the board?
This might be a silly question since my kids are showing me how to use technology, but what training do the students get when they get like a brand new iPad Pro?
So when we did the deployment, we went through, there were some video tutorials we had the teachers show. I was walking them through kind of setup things. That just helped them getting started. But beyond that, what we do is teachers do a lot of support for the kids. We have tech coaches in the building. We have techs on site. So we're talking with kids and teachers all the time.
I would add on to that. So in the intermediate building, we have 3 teachers that are technology coaches that they have a supplemental contract for, but they've done additional training with our Apple education specialists, and they provide support to staff throughout the day, their planning, as well as staff meeting and before and after school technology seminars to support staff with things. But I will tell you that often the students are the ones teaching the staff. But as our staff work with the Apple education specialists, they're learning how to use different programs and then they're teaching the students.
And then remind me, so the 9th graders will be able to take them home?
Yes. Although I just told Mr. Kramer, 4th grade, 9th grade maturity level there. We'll see. But yes, that is the plan. They will.
Okay.
So 5th grade and up right now, take them home.
Okay.
So I had a question that came a couple weeks ago from a parent, and it's been discussed. Maybe just clarify for me. If you're a parent and you want to monitor what the student is spending their time on the app, it's hard to monitor screen time at home, and they say, well, I'm doing X, Y, Z. Is there a way for the parent to monitor that or see what's happening?
So a couple of things they could do. They can just have the student unlock the device and just look at the app, just look at those things on there. So the mobile device management system we use is called Zulu Desk. It does have a parent app with it. Our intent was to roll that out early in the fall, but there's a bug in it that doesn't allow time schedules to be set. It doesn't allow the visibility that we wanted. So we have support tickets in with the company trying to get these things corrected. They've corrected some of the things, but we don't feel like it would be a success to roll it out to parents. We think there'd be too many questions, issues with it. So our intent was to roll that out earlier. We're waiting for the company to correct some of the glitches, but that app will give parents full capability. It will allow them to lock it at certain times. It will allow them to see the screen time and those things. Unfortunately, like I said, the app it wasn't ready to roll out to parents yet.
So once that's ready, then there'll be visibility and education for parents on how to do that. Okay. Thank you.
We have also worked with some students and parents have had special requests. We have done things for those in certain circumstances to help the parents better manage their students who have a little more challenges wandering than other kids do.
Thank you.
Well, so I was going to ask about that being a district-owned or district-controlled device. What controls are you able to put in place to manage what content kids are seeing on these devices? Yeah, so during the school day, obviously they're on the school network, they go through the school's content filter, so the web filter that way. So just like any other device, they go through that. So that way we can manage internet content that comes down to them. We don't allow the students to install any apps. We don't allow them to install anything. We don't allow them to delete anything. So any apps that are on there, we've pushed down to the devices, and they're on there for educational purposes. In the settings of the device, just like any iOS device, you have kind of it used to be parental controls, now it's screen time. So those are the restrictions that are on the device. So we set a lot of those. So for example, we set in terms of content where you can't have apps that are rated over a certain age limit. You can't have media content from the internet over a certain, it says limit adult content. So while they're at school, it's filtered through our web filter. When they're at home, then we rely on NAPLS restrictions to do those things in addition to whatever the parents might have set up on their network at home. Gotcha.
Also have, I'll just add the Apple Classroom feature so they can see what is on a student's screen at any time, if they're off task, if they're not paying attention, and they can lock those things down and have conversations too and redirect as needed.
How are we doing on warranty replacement? Yeah, so we plan for, when we purchase the devices, we plan for a 6% breakage rate, and that's based on other districts that we heard with iPads, what they were experiencing. So far, we've only had 11 replacements that we've had to do. So if we continue that pace, we're going to be well under the 6% for the school year. Last one, at least as I'm thinking about it right now, you mentioned a couple of the modifications or changes to the plan that you're going to be doing here. Where are we right now based on the original rollout plan that you had presented to us? Where are we at in the progress of that whole plan? We're right on track. So the plan was this year, just exactly what we did, everything you saw in there. The plan next year was to address the middle school, high school classroom needs, address the middle school, high school teacher needs. So those are going to be addressed probably a little sooner. So instead of waiting for the summer to do it, which again, it's a lot more staff, it's more compressed time. We're going to start that process with the staff early. We're doing the middle school classrooms over winter break, again, just to give us more time to get the high school because of the challenges, physical challenges there. The only deviation from the plan, other than speeding those two things up by a couple months, were the 8th graders. And that was conversations with Mrs. LeBeau, Dr. Hamilton, Mr. Sawyers, Ms. Jenkins, just to say, what can we do to make that middle school experience better? And we just thought that if we purchased them, basically we're purchasing the 2nd grade iPads a year early. And as long as we don't experience more breakages than what we're seeing now, it shouldn't be an issue that way. Okay. And I guess just last thing, and I know this was something we talked about when we first rolled this program out. If you are, and I'm just thinking about it because you mentioned the high school, if you are a sophomore, junior, even current freshman, there's still the ability, if you have your own device, to bring it to school and use it. Everything works pretty much the same way. The only issue here, I shouldn't say the only issue, the one thing that we're able to do with the district-owned devices is to be able to do testing, correct? Correct. Students can still bring in their own devices, and they do, and Mr. Perry and Mrs. LeBeau can attest to that. So they can bring in their own devices. With the middle school going completely one-to-one next year, they do have 14 carts of Chromebooks, so those will go to the high school. So that's going to give the high school a lot more devices where the kids won't necessarily need their personal ones as much as they do now. Right, other than testing and other than management and restrictions, those are the only things that the kids can't do that they can on a school-owned device.
Will it be more challenging the way you were saying some kids had them and some kids didn't, with the 9th graders, they will be blended with 10th graders and accelerated classes.
It will be a challenge, and we talked about that too. But because we're talking about 4 grade levels versus 2, there's just not the funding to be able to pull that off. So that's why we're hoping that adding 14 carts of Chromebooks from the middle school to the high school will help kind of standardize in those classes where they are mixed with freshmen, sophomores, and so on. They at least can have that base, that foundation of Chromebooks to use if they need to.
And is the goal to have most of the, freshmen, like 100% freshman classes taught with the Apple technology by the teachers?
Yeah, so those classes that are truly just freshman classes, that's probably where we'll focus. And again, so some of those things we'll still need to work out with Mr. Kramer and his team. But that would probably be the focus of the main focus of the PD, because they're going to have the kids all day or for most of the day with devices. So we could start with those teachers that are primarily freshman teachers with the PD, but then still allow, obviously, others to join in the PD. But that would probably be the focus because they will have those kids with the devices.
And so then the following year, it would be oriented toward sophomore and freshman.
Yeah, as much as we can. It's not at the high school. It's not a perfect world like that, but right, as much as we can. Again, and we'll talk through that PD. What makes sense? If it's department wise, if it's kind of grade level wise, we'll work through those details.
Mike, one additional question. Is Apple committed to the discount to make it available to high school parents or other parents if they choose to purchase the device on their own?
Yeah, we didn't set a limit on the online store that was set up for them, so there is no end date to that. We'll continue to work with them if they push and want an end date, but they've not given us an end date for the online store.
So that is one of the benefits for families. If they are going to purchase technology for their own student and bring their own device to school, they can get the educational pricing through the Apple store and what's been created through Mike and working directly with Apple, because clearly we're getting a discount for education purposes. That same discount can apply to families.
So what would they do, Michael?
They have to go to the online store specifically that we can send them a link to. You don't go to the normal Apple store. You have to purchase it through the hyperlink that becomes available to the school district, so you get access to the discounted price. So we'll make sure that we facilitate communications for families in preparation for that again, because we did advertise it very strongly at the beginning of the school year, really through the summer into the start of the school year for families that were looking to purchase technology. And we did have some families take advantage of it. I mean, it's a small discount, but it's still a discount. And you don't get a discount going to another store for Apple. You just don't get it.
It'd be good to remind them now if they're out doing holiday shopping.
Yeah. That's something we can do because we have that information and we can put it in the queue to send it back out. And then we're recommending the device because our goal, to your point, Mrs. Kalinowski, for the high school is to get the platform to be the iPad Pro. So it's not your traditional iPad. We are recommending the Pro so that they're prepared for the collegiate experience that most colleges and universities are now requiring, using the Pro features that are available for high school students. Any other questions? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Scott, you gonna wrap?
Yep, conclusion. Other elementary initiatives include continuing the great work started by Superintendent Sawyers last year at the R Factor. We've been working closely with John Hood on this important program for our staff and students to try to weave it into the daily lives at our elementary schools. We're also continuing our work with Jessica Myas with the use of Performance Matters data warehouse in order to make better informed decisions. And as you heard at our last meeting, Sandy Reed's work at the Easton E3 Learning Lab has been just an exciting development at the elementary level as well as the secondary level this year. And finally, specific to the ELC, Michelle Unger and Jackie Zieber are continuing the process to secure us a 5-star step up to quality rating for our preschool program. The ELC had their unannounced on-site review by the Ohio Department of Education last week. They were told we should get notice hopefully before vacation, whether or not we've earned that really difficult to achieve 5-star rating. So we're excited to hear from ODE here in the next couple of weeks. So thank you for allowing me time to update you on our elementary curriculum initiatives. I welcome any additional questions you may have, unless they're from Mike Boss. about these initiatives and their alignment to our statement of purpose and continuous improvement plan.
Buddy.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board policies.
Board of Education members, on tonight's agenda, there are 13 policies that are presented for second reading. We discussed these at our previous meeting. There are statutory changes or recommendations through federal statute or Ohio Revised Code that have modified specific languages and variety of policy. There were 2 new additions that I spoke about previously related to federal requirements for the local report card publication that have to be accounted for to be eligible for free and reduced lunch benefits. There's specific language that was added to them for federal statute that have been incorporated. So we discussed these at last month's meeting, and they're presented this evening for second reading. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we have our first opportunity for public participation. All right. Then to treasurer's items, and we just have one item tonight, item A. So I would entertain a motion on treasurer's item 7A.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bush, Ms. Kalinowski. Ms. Jenkins.
So we just have the one appropriation modification where we're requesting an increase in funds for athletics. We had a camp account that raised more money than they expected, so they would like to spend that money. And in order to do that, we have to increase the appropriation account.
Any questions? If none, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. And then moving on to superintendent's items, A through D, remembering that we have 8A, the correction on the start date.
And the addendum.
And the addendum, that's right. So could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Darrow, Ms. Kalinowski, Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. Board of Education members, the personnel action items that are presented this evening are standard employment actions for the school district. We did receive some additional information related for teacher stipends that are presented this evening for payment purposes. One that's slightly out of the ordinary is the payment for a stipend related to the Washington, D.C. trip. So I'm just going to talk about that for a second, that there's a one-time payment being made for overnight chaperones for Washington, D.C. It was part of the fee collected for the actual overnight field trip for the 8th grade students that did participate in D.C. This is a one-time action and won't appear again in the future. Other than that, there's standard employment action items that are being presented for this evening's approval. Letter B this evening for general business. There's a variety of things that relate to the 2019-2020 school year. So we're going to begin this evening with the high school course additions. There are 4 courses that are being proposed for addition to New Albany High School for student registration that will begin in January for the 2019-2020 school year. Blue Quill is the Global Scholars Program specifically that was presented at last month's meeting. And then there's 3 additional computer science courses that are being introduced for Programming 1, Programming 2, and Honors Programming 3 with amendments or deletions in the program of studies to be incorporated based upon the changes in computer science. Thereafter, we're recommending the approval of the 2019-2020 program of studies that was provided as an attachment for board review to allow students to begin the registration process when Mr. Kramer and Mrs. Warren roll that out at New Albany High School. Dr. Hamilton's reviewed everything. Mrs. Lofton and I have gone through all of the information. We are in full support with the recommended changes for 2019-2020, and we believe the kids will be, upon return from winter recess, ready to begin the registration process that's necessary for us for staffing and planning for the future. Number 4 this evening is the approval of school calendars. I presented these last month for future school years for 2020-21, 21-22, and 22-23. I will tell you the only change that I've made since they were presented last month was in the 21-22 school year. I eliminated the proposed draft of the Friday before winter recess to begin on December 17th, and have since replaced it with the Monday after Easter. I used that based upon the survey feedback that was provided to the school district from a parent perspective, that the third additional weekend that's being provided with an extra day in December created hardship for daycare purposes. It's far enough away. It still gives 2 full weeks of winter recess. So in that year, I moved that Friday to the Monday after Easter in 2021-22. Other than that, the calendars were as presented last month at the board meeting. There's a recommendation this evening. As you recall from prior conversations, we received some additional federal funding for IDEA-B grants. We've previously done some work on the playgrounds to provide inclusive play equipment. You have a recommendation this evening to spend additional dollars that were received again for IDEA-B to purchase a special needs van that could be used and equipped with a lift for special needs students in our school district. Again, federal funding is paying for that, and it appears on tonight's agenda for approval. Standard action items for field trips, and then number 7 is the purchase to continue our process for forward progress in relationship to the technology plan that Mr. Voss presented on this evening. A recommendation not to exceed $959,000 for the purchase of the technology equipment that Mr. Voss shared this evening for middle school, high school implementation in preparation for the 2019-2020 school year. The goal is to move forward with Apple in securing dominantly the teacher equipment through the winter and spring to allow us to start the professional development necessary for full implementation at the middle school and high school in preparation for 2019-2020. The Board of Education will recall when we return in January post-winter break, we continue this current school year while we actively start planning for the next school year. So that work is about to begin. But to help facilitate the process with Apple, we're moving forward with the recommendations that were originally outlined. The money was line items within the permanent improvement budget based upon transfers that occurred at the end of last school year. So we've accounted for the dollars. We are on budget, on track. And Ms. Jenkins and I are making recommendation to continue to move forward with that implementation as we had outlined. Donations this evening, as always, we're grateful to the donors who continue to provide resources and treasures to the school district from a monetary donation. We were very fortunate this past month to receive a very large donation towards the Easton E3 lab from a family in New Albany. That are interested in helping us to continue that work and implementing the full curriculum necessary to meet the needs of students. So as always, we are very grateful to the New Albany Foundation, Community Foundation, as well as the benefactors within our community at large. Board policy appears, and again, it's the 13 policies for second reading. And then lastly is the addendum agenda. I want to make one comment in relationship to the roof procurement. And Ms. Jenkins can add anything that I miss. If necessary, but there's an action item that's presented this evening. We went through the competitive bid process to continue the work associated to permanent improvements that were outlined for the school district. The board's previously approved the work at the high school, so that began last summer for phase 1 with shingles and the one metal roof at the high school that you'll recall. And then this summer, we continued the metal work at the high school for B, C, and D, which is the natatorium. Roof will be replaced for metal purposes, and then the adjacent metal buildings to the natatorium specifically. That's part 1. That's not on tonight's agenda. You've already approved it. Tonight's procurement recommendation continues in the same process. We are going through U.S. communities to do a competitive bid process out of state to come back into state to then award to subcontractors through Garland DBS Incorporated. So the same process that we used to secure the most competitive price possible last year for roofing, we've repeated this year for roofing as well. So we went through the competitive bid process, the top 2 bids that were received for lowest responsible for the multi-bid process that happens. Garland then goes back to, has the individual meetings with the company, sits down and goes through their work orders and makes sure that all the materials that are required and all the labor that's required and the timelines are met to do that. we've done the meetings with Garland because they are the quote-unquote manager of the project and have then reviewed the final documents that were now received. So tonight's agenda includes a recommendation for the primary school and the administrative offices. So this continues the work that we had scheduled through the permanent improvement project. We're not replacing the roof for the sake of replacing the roof. The AO roof is in significant disrepair. The actual Mount Carmel side is leaking in the doctor's office. We've put Band-Aids in place to get us through the winter in order to then do full roof replacement at the administrative offices. And that's the first building. That likely will start in March because we're being told by Garland that as soon as the winter weather begins to break, the roofing subcontractors will begin the work. We will not have to wait for school to be out to do the administrative office building because of its current disrepair. As soon as the weather is possible, the roofers are available, and actually that will be the first building that gets started for shingle purposes as soon as the weather allows that to happen, given its current condition. The second building that's now over nearly 25 years old is the primary school. It's 150,000 square feet. Again, shingle disrepair. There's specific sections that are leaking. We're working through that. We will make it through the winter, but the primary school shingles must be replaced. There's some specific louver work that also has to occur based upon the research and the site investigations that were done. There's been at least 3 roofing companies that have done site inspections on that roof. We did an ultra something scan. There's a name for it. It escapes me sitting here. I'm going to tell you we x-rayed the roof, but there's a specific name for it. It's an ultra something something to get the 3D imaging back to show where the significant disrepair is. So we have thermal imaging of that roof, but there's a specific name for it. I'm going to call it thermal imaging. That has come back and the primary school must be replaced. The good news is when we went through the permanent improvement process for the original estimates that were received, we estimated approximately $1.5 million to do this work. Based upon the competitive bid process, we're recommending this evening that you approve procurement not to exceed $925,000. So we're approximately $500,000 under budget based upon the competitive bid process. So the good news is it's about $500,000 less than what we originally anticipated. The bad news is the work needs to get done. And it will be finished in the primary school's case. It'll start the day after school ends. That's the purpose of presenting it tonight for recommendation. We will be the first school scheduled for the company, and we are guaranteed completion by August 1st.
We also need to have these approved before the end of December so that we keep these prices.
Right. Pricing for shingles changes effective with the 2019 calendar year. So Garland fast-tracked the competitive bid process and still secured multiple bids, but the pricing structure will change for 2019. By acting tonight, we guarantee 2018 pricing.
We had 4 companies that bid on the roofs.
Correct. The next lowest responsible bid was approximately $140,000 more than the current bid received.
So just so I understand, and I just got it today, they've taken bids for each of the buildings from each of the contractors, right? And then they've chosen different contractors for different buildings. So we have different subs?
There's a sub for Garland subs the project. So Garland's like the manager, and then it goes to a subcontract. So there's each subcontract that's listed on the document we sent you this afternoon. It's provided for the proposal, shows the bids received for each bid portion, and then there's an overall bid at the end for the entire project that shows you the award amount that we're recommending this evening.
And another reason that spurred my question is like you had Fiesel Roofing be the low bidder on the admin building, but they're a high bidder everywhere else. So Garland has gone back and verified that's a legitimate bid.
Correct. And through that verification process, this is the final result. So both Alumni Roofing and Fiesel had an opportunity to confirm and submit final bid information.
Thank you.
You mentioned Carmel. Just for people who may not understand, the AO is our building. They're a tenant, which means we're responsible for the
Here's that.
The district owns the building, they're a tenant, that means we're responsible for the roof.
Correct. We are responsible for the roof. Mount Carmel, we currently pays rent for the land portion that their portion of the building sits on based upon the prior community authority purchase agreement that was established when they built the building. Mount Carmel paid to build the building. We leased the building from them for a term of years. Now that has ceased, and now the next phase of the contract kicks in that they pay us rent for the land for the half of the building that they're currently occupying. And eventually that will change to the point where they will start paying rent for the actual use of the building after X number of years, but they paid to actually build the building originally. It was done through the community authority. But yes, we are responsible for all upkeep now of that building because we are now the owner of that physical site.
Any other questions or thoughts?
So the amount we're authorizing, Michael, is the total, I'm looking at the,
Yeah, the end, 925,000. It allows for a little bit of contingency for a change order if necessary. Alumni's original bid was $903,367.
okay, thank
If
you.
you look at the very bottom of the bid summary, you can see that they have some per square foot cost, so there could be some site issues. And so that's why we included a little bit more.
There's a decking concern related to the administrative office building on the Mount Carmel side because of the leakage. So that has been a conversation with both contractors when they've done the site inspections. So you see that's an additional unforeseen circumstance because they don't know until they actually start the replacement process what decking will have to be replaced. But they do believe there's going to be some decking specifically required on the Mount Carmel side of our building.
Thank you.
So we've allowed a little bit of a contingency. Other questions? Thank you.
If there are no other questions, then I would request a roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. And I just lost my agenda. There it goes. Public participation. Okay. Second opportunity? No? I know what's next. It's a motion for adjournment. So moved. Okay. Mr. Darrow, Ms. Kalinowski. Roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. We are adjourned. Our next meeting will be our organizational meeting on January 9th, 6:30.